I'd like to, before we bring Amber on, I'd like to just say a few words about Amber Jayanti. She's an author. First of all, she wrote Tarot for Dummies for the
Hmm.
from the popular Dummy for Dummies franchise, and she is also a Kabbalist as well. And tonight we're going to talk about how to blend Kabbalah into tarot in order to get a better result from your own personal tarot reader. You can find her over at www.practicalmystic.com, and I believe we have her. Hello, Amber. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Delighted to be here with you
Oh,
simultaneously on the West Coast and East Coast at the same time. And my website has got a dash. It's practical-mystic.com.
forgive me. That's exactly right.
You are forgiven.
A small detail, but very important. And of course, there
It's
aren't too
very
many.
important. Yes, yes,
There,
yes, yes.
there aren't too many Amber Jayantis in the world. So if anybody goes to Google and plugs Amber Jayanti into Google, you're guaranteed to come across her site, and it's well worth.
Maybe. There's a pass.
Definitely well worth a visit. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot of material to cover here tonight. Both of these topics, Kabbalah and Tarot, are sprawling, huge topics. So let's just start with.
And I'm just delighted to be here with you, Stephen. So thank you so much for the invite.
I'm overjoyed to have you here as well. Very excited about the show. These are two topics that are near and dear to my heart. I'm very curious, Amber. How would you define Kabbalah?
Hmm. Well, the dictionary categorizes Kabbalah as a noun, but 21st century practitioners also classify Kabbalah as a verb, the part of speech, that indicates action.
Yeah.
And for me, this beautifully corresponds to the translation of the word Kabbalah from Hebrew to receive and from mouth to ear. And my yoga background leads me to liken the word Kabbalah to the Sanskrit word shruti, meaning the inner perception or hearing of divine revelations, and suggesting that Kabbalah is actively sent to and received by those who are open to receiving its teachings, to those who have the ears to hear, and it's then passed on to others who also have the ears to hear. So for me, the shift from a noun to a verb, intimates that Kabbalah isn't dead volumes of scriptures. It's alive. It's vibrant. And for me, Kabbalah is a living and growing system. Of wisdom teachings and practices that I have, learned to identify as ageless wisdom.
Well, one thing that's confused me about Kabbalah is how to spell it. I've seen so many variations in spelling. Can you explain what the differences are between
Oh, I'll do my best, Stephen. When it's spelled with the letter K, Kabbalah is really only one label of very many used during a period of over 2,000 years to designate the mystical Jewish movement, its teachings and its practices. And the two major works of and these are, considered to be Hebrew Kabbalah when it's spelled with a K, are the Sefer Yetzirah, and Sefer means book, the book of creation or formation, and the Sefer Zohar, the book of splendor. And what else can I tell you here? Yes, the Sefer Yetzirah was written in Arabic, and it was found in Egypt somewhere between 6 to 800 A.D., and it was really once thought to have been written by the ancient Jewish patriarch Abraham. But its true author, remains a mystery. The Zohar, or the Book of Splendor, was written by Rabbi Moses de Leon in the mid to late 12th century, and it was once purported, interestingly, to have been a collection of writings of one of the very, very, very earliest, and perhaps the first known Kabbalist, named Rabbi Shimeon ben Yochai, from about 150 A.D. And there is also one other piece to this, one other work which I consider to be especially significant, and it's called the Book of Brightness, or the Sefer HaBahir, and of unknown origin, and it surfaced in southern France in the late 12th century. And although it is generally considered by the Hebrew Kabbalists to be unimportant, to me it is the first known written reference and mention to a sacred tree, and a work that describes the 10 spheres of the tree of life as vessels of divine light. So I guess here it's essential to say that the Hebrew Kabbalah is not strictly kosher. I hope to get a laugh on that. It was influenced by the Mu'tazila, the rationalist school that emerged in Persia around the 8th to the 10th century, and also the Gnostic heresies, as well as
interesting. So there's a distinction between Hebraic or Jewish Kabbalah and other types of mystical Kabbalah practices. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, and the Hebrew is spelled with a K, and I'll give you a little bit on the C. Would you like a little on the C?
Yes, let's hear about the C.
Let's hear about the C. When Kabbalah is spelled with C, it's used when discussing the spread of the Jewish mystical tradition, or the Kabbalah with a K, even though it has Sufi influence and Gnostic influence in it. So the spread of Jewish mystical tradition and its symbols into mystical Christian circles and again, this movement originated in southern France and Spain in the 12th and 13th century, and continued into the mid-15th century. Its mid-Renaissance roots are very closely tied to the Neoplatonic leanings of the Medicean Academy in Florence. And, we do know that the Renaissance marked an end to the age of faith and ushered in the age of reason, and with it a decline in religiosity. And a few cutting-edge thinkers thought that a viable way of reviving Catholicism was to combine Christianity with Judaism. And while, this idea really, brought numerous prominent religious scholars and philosophical figures into the midst, the idea was greatly ahead of its time and failed quite miserably. The head of the Medicean Academy, Pico della Mirandola, in his 900 conclusions, gave 900 reasons why magic and Kabbalah are the best proofs of Christ's divinity. So interesting. The Pope, which I believe was Leo X, quashed Pico's project, but Pico, most interestingly, stood his ground and didn't recant the conclusions, although he was under a lot of pressure. So because Kabbalistic works explore the relationship between the universe and creation, the term Kabbalah with a C came to refer to Neoplatonic, Orphic, Neo-Pythagorean Gnostic wisdom in the general sense, rather than specific Jewish doctrines as expounded in the Hebrew text. And akin to the early Jewish Kabbalists, Kabbalah with a C was one of the numerous titles that the founders and the early masters of the school gave to their secret law, and it was only later that Kabbalah with a C became the most commonly used designation for this particular mystery school.
Interesting. We can also spell it with a Q, though. What's up with that?
Well, what's up with that is that's a mid-19th century spelling assigned by some individuals who knowingly combined the esoteric works of Kabbalah with a K and Kabbalah with a C with the magical components, we can say the Hermetic arts and sciences, tarot, astrology, numerology, sacred geometry. And Kabbalah with a Q, however, also includes teachings from the ancient mystery schools, the Hellenistic, Pythagorean, etc., Platonic mystery schools, as well as from the more contemporary Rosicrucian, Masonic, Theosophical, and Golden Dawn orders. And I guess my many years of working with students from various backgrounds, plus my own familiarity with esoteric Hindu yoga and Advaita Vedanta, Buddhist, Sufi, pagan, and shamanic traditions and practices prompted me to use this spelling and to further expand its meaning. So for me, Kabbalah, when it's spelled with a Q, refers to universal Kabbalah. And universal Kabbalah is a non-sexist, non-racist, non-homophobic, pan or non-denominational system of ageless wisdom and teachings and practices that's really not limited to any particular religious form. It is really all-inclusive. And this approach may be regarded as eclecticism. It's very eclectic, the combining of different often seemingly contradictory beliefs, schools of thought, Judaism and Islam, Christianity and Hinduism, and so on. I guess essentially Kabbalah's teachings, for me, reconcile and really build a powerful alignment and alliance between the differing traditions by acknowledging their commonalities. And really, in my estimation, Universal Kabbalah actually bridges the inner traditions of East and West, because it really, again, emphasizes the principles that they share, and in this way serves as a potent, peacemaker between seemingly dissenting beliefs.
Very interesting. And it's this form of Kabbalah that interests us tonight, how the Kabbalah touches upon the tarot specifically. But before we get into tarot practice, let's talk a little bit about the Tetragrammaton. What can you talk a little bit about that for us, please?
Well, all right. Tetra is 4, and gramma is letters. So we have the Tetragrammaton, which is a word, which is actually the Hebrew letters Yod, He, Vav, He, 4 letters composed only of consonants. And because it lacks vowels, it's deemed unpronounceable, or better yet, I'd rather say unspeakable.
Yes.
It makes the Tetragrammaton. For me, this makes the Tetragrammaton analogous with the words "and God said," as only God was to say it, deeming it, to be the vibration of creation, the word of the Most High that initiated creation. And what I really want to mention here is that the Tetragrammaton is the foundation for the 4 tarot suits, as each of its letters represent one of the 4 elements of creation: the fire, the water, the air, and the earth. And a little bit more about that later. But forbidding the articulation of the Tetragrammaton occurred in about 200 to 300 BC. And it was done really both out of respect for this holy name and to refrain from giving the ordinary person this holy power, Old story. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the idea, that if you can pronounce someone's name, you have a power over them. In the times of Jesus, for example, there were a lot of miracle workers who were accused of being charlatans because they were manipulating the Tetragrammaton somehow. Am I right about that, or am I misunderstanding?
I would say yes. There are some real interesting legends around it, which I'll go into in a second, but what I'd like to do is actually pronounce the Tetragrammaton.
Oh,
actually,
should I be worried here, Amber?
Let's
Is anything
chant
bad going to happen to me?
Oh, it can chant it. I mean, and I'll let's see if I can. So the Tetragrammaton also, interpreted as Yahweh or Yod-He, Yahweh or Jehovah, can be pronounced or enunciated or chanted this way. Yahweh,
And that is vibrating the name, correct?
You got it.
It's very important to do it that way, because when you vibrate the name, that's when you sort of tap into its power.
You are right. You are so right. And again, it's that vibration of creation, as we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago. It's very interesting that legend states that on the Jewish New Year, the high priest or the chief rabbi goes into the heart of the temple and pronounces the Tetragrammaton, and by doing so, recreates the world for another year. And also, contemporarily, the unspeakable Tetragrammaton has morphed into the holy word Adonai, which means master of the universe, which is only spoken or chanted during religious ceremonies, and is likewise substituted by the word Hashem, an indirect reference to the name. It's never directly spoken, or said Adonai, unless it is in the context of a, of a religious ceremony.
Right.
And we all know, I guess maybe we all know, that the Tetragrammaton is the name that Moses was given at the burning bush on Sinai, after asking, right? Finish the story.
Oh, you're exactly right. God, Moses wants to know quite reasonably who he's speaking with, right? Who this entity is. And so he's brazen enough to ask the creator of the universe what its name is. And, right? Am I right? And this creator says, I am what I am.
I am what I am. I am that I am. I am with all that was, is, and will always be, really.
Simple words, but very, very profound, no?
Yeah, I would say all that which was, is, and will always be. Mm-hmm.
So Kabbalah, there are a couple of terms. This is all in the way of background here. There are a couple of terms in Kabbalah: the macroprosopos, I think, and then the microprosopos. The gist here is that Kabbalah concerns itself with life on a grand scale, but also life on a microscopic scale too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, Kabbalists like myself really embrace the law of synchronicity, parented by the science of subatomic particle physics and the quantum mechanics, the theory of relativity, the law of synchronicity that says all events and things are tied together in an unbroken wholeness, suggesting that life is not really a series of random events. It's an expression of a deeper order, which is sometimes called one world or unus mundus. And I guess most simply, there is a unifying underlying reality that everything emerges from and returns to, and this idea really shifts my egocentric thinking, both consciously and unconsciously, to this greater wholeness, this universal view of the life process, that regards all phenomena as interwoven, microcosm, macrocosm. My mentor, Joseph Nolan, succinctly stated, what did he say? Joseph said, Kabbalah is a system that affirms the universal structure of all life in its myriad forms, from the largest universe to the smallest, to the atom, and is a revolving system of satellites around a center. And furthermore, fractal geometry's repetitive patterns provide a scientific framework for this ages-old principle. The Hermetic dictum, what? As above, so below, as below, so above.
Yes.
What is it? The Masoretic version of Genesis, says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So I guess there it is.
Fascinating. Well, you regard the Kabbalistic tree of life and the tarot to be the basis of a mystery school tradition. Would you mind elaborating on that, please?
Well, I guess as I am continuing to learn and experience, the Kabbalistic tree of life and tarot and its pathways are the foundation of said ancient mystery school tradition. Mysteries ask for solutions, and the Kabbalistic mystery school offers clues to help solve the mysteries, what mystifies and puzzles and confounds us about life and death. And I guess I'm not going to guess, for me, all life situations may be perceived as a set of pictures. And the Kabbalistic tree of life and tarot are picture symbols that represent universal and natural laws, truths, and principles. And in the Kabbalistic mystery school tradition, the tarot cards are called keys. And these unique keys unlock doors, helping the key holder or card holder, the card holder, I love it, to better perceive the greater mystery or reality embedded, encoded within daily living. These keys have assisted many to find and to follow their spiritual path. And, aligned with the true mystery school tradition, the study of Kabbalah is not about searching for the way or adopting another's way. It's really about finding and following one's own way through life to the heart of the universe and one's soul spirit self. And in that sense, the Kabbalistic mystery school is really a pathless path that does not tell students what to do. It offers these pictorial guidelines or clues rather than exact formulas, and these clues are given to, for us to better our lives and our outlook and the world around us. And I guess, of course, these guidelines are something that only the spiritual aspirant knows if and when and how he or she, are ready to bring them into their life.
Now, these keys you're talking about, these pictorial guides, you're referring to the major arcana of the tarot now.
That's right, I am.
So everybody listen up now. In your tarot decks at home, in your the major arcana, the pictorial cards, these are actually keys. And everything we're talking about here is the process. These can be measured, perhaps, or shown by the tarot cards. Correct, Amber?
Well, through study and intuition, certainly one starts to discover the meaning of those cards. And, we have these life situations, Stephen, and the art of this and the science of this is, for me, learning how to look at these mundane situations and to be able to, if I pick a card, that I'm looking for, to some guidance, some inspiration, regard to the situation, to overlay these, these universal principles, to be able to key into what the card holds, so I can better understand this mundane situation, or, what I call it transforming the mundane into the mystical, by using these cards to elevate or expand my perception or a student's perception.
Okay. Well, in order to begin using Kabbalah effectively with the tarot deck, one probably needs to understand a little bit about the Tree of Life. Now, what is that?
Well, Tree of Life, what I would like to do? I'd like to take a moment, or a couple of moments here, and give you an encapsulation and personalization of the Tree of Life that was passed on to me by my teacher, Paul Foster Case, through Builders of the Adytum, which I have very, very slightly adjusted over the years. And, it really, again, is an encapsulation and personalization of the 10 basic principles linked to the 10 spheres of Sephirah on the tree, from which, the Kabbalistic Tarot originates. So do we have a couple of minutes to do this?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay. So it begins with these very simple words, and when I hold my classes, my students, we say these together. This is the truth about the self. All the power that ever was or will be is here now. And then there are 10 statements, and each one goes with a sphere on the Tree of Life, beginning with the sphere of the crown or Keter. Number 1, the crown, Keter. I am a center of expression for the one divine will to express itself, which eternally creates, sustains, and transforms the universe. And then we go to wisdom, or Chokmah. Through me, its unfailing wisdom takes form in thought and word. And now to wisdom, and now to understanding, Binah. Filled with understanding of its perfect law, I am guided moment by moment along the path of liberation. And then we go to mercy, Chesed. From the exhaustless riches of its limitless substance, I draw all things needful, both spiritual and material. And then, of course, that's balanced with number 5, severity, Gudora. I recognize the manifestation of the undeviating justice in all the circumstances of my life, and parenthetically, whether I like it or not. And then we have 6, which is beauty and Teferet in all things great and small. I behold the beauty of the divine expression. 7, which goes with victory, Netzach, living from that will, supported by its unfailing wisdom and understanding from above, the Sephirah above. Mine is the victorious life. And we go to 8, which is Yesod and splendor, I look forward with confidence to the perfect realization of the eternal splendor of the limitless light. And I know that some of these are not initially comprehensible, but over time they become increasingly comprehensible. Number 9, Yesod, foundation in thought and word and deed. I rest my life from day to day upon the sure foundation of eternal being. And number 10, we have kingdom, or Malkut. The royalty of spirit is embodied in all flesh. The royalty of spirit is embodied in my flesh. So that's a little encapsulation.
What I'd like to point out to the listeners is that there are 10 of these, and just like there are 10 pip cards, there are 10, and these are the Sephirot that you're explaining here, right, Amber?
Mm-hmm. Which naturally are connected to the pip cards. So these 10 statements can naturally be applied to the minor arcana, to all the aces and the twos and the threes and the fours and so on. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So all that's left to do now is to filter these statements, these ideas, through the 4 elements or the suits, correct? Depending on what card we're talking about.
Yes, and I'd like to just give you a little bit more on the tree. Is that okay?
Oh, please, by all means.
So the tree of life is a cosmic computer.
Whoa, that's a heavy concept.
The tree of life, like its pictorial representation and extension, the tarot cards, is a filing system and for enormous amounts of information, which through time and training can be accessed and inputted. Mm-hmm.
So in other words, this is like a big, huge cosmic Google.
Google, you say?
Google, yes. Google, some sort of a search engine, some sort of engine where I can find some clarity on that.
Yes, of course. The tree of life really isn't it? Go ahead, Stephen. I'm sorry.
Oh no! I was just sort of flabbergasted me because I've never heard such an apt analogy. It's flabbergasting.
Isn't it lovely? I love it.
Yes.
You know, I mean, there it is. It just nails it. At least, the tree of life is a map of the involution from the top to the bottom, and evolution from the bottom of top to the top of consciousness. While we live in the physical world and body, and as such, depicts the building blocks for all of creation. In other words, this glyph, this tree of life, is a mathematical and diagrammatic history of the evolution of life and human consciousness. It's a graphic presentation to the human mind of the interactions that occur between universal and personal consciousness. And in response to this, it is of the utmost importance to remember that what is perceived is always a reflection of the level of awareness of the perceiver. Thus, I can contemplate the tree of life today, and I will see it one way, while at another point in time, because my awareness has developed, I may see it quite differently. So from this perspective, the tree is simply a mirror of one's breath of awareness. Dion Fortune, in her book, The Mystical Kabbalah, said of the tree, she said, the tree is to the universal mind what the dream is to the individual ego. A symbol arising from the subconscious indicating what is hidden. And I tend to liken the tree to a cosmic Christmas tree, where a place for every possible kind of experience and awareness exists, and where on the life process is its ornaments. The tree is a living and breathing entity. Yes, it is a constantly transforming reality that may be understood to represent both the personal and cosmic experience of life. And in other words, the tree might be viewed as a living reality and as living reality.
Yes. Now, one thing I'd like to point out to people is that as we're going from the Sephirot, Keter, down to Malkut, in other words, as we're going from the ace to the number 10, we're talking
Right.
about increasing levels of concreteness, increasing levels of reality, correct?
Yes, the thickening of matter.
The thickening. That's
The
a very good.
thickening.
That's very good.
And
Let's hold that thought, please, Amber. We got to take a 1-minute commercial break here.
go,
So
go.
we're gonna come back in exactly 1 minute. Just to remind everybody, they can find Amber at www.practical-mystic.com, and there you can order her books. You can enroll in her lovely classes, which are extremely informative and helpful, and you can pick up other products. And with that, we will be right back in 1 minute.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at PsychicAccess.com.
Welcome back to Psychic Viewpoint, and tonight we do have with us Amber Jayanti, Kabbalist and Tarotist and author and teacher. She's so many things, but right now what she is more than anything else is fascinating and enlightening. I'm really enjoying this interview, Amber. We appreciate you being here tonight. So we talked about the Sephirot on the Tree of Life, and how these relate to the tarot deck, to the small numbered cards of the tarot.
Yeah.
Let's pretend that we're actually doing a tarot spread, for example, and we get some of these numbered cards. We're not really talking about the major arcanum cards. But we get some of the smaller pip cards. What does some of this? What does this make you think when you see these smaller cards? And how do you go about attaching them to the Tree of Life or?
Well, I think what I'd like to do is talk about. Yeah, okay. A lot of study, a lot of study, and a lot of intuition. This is a lifetime work for me, and one has to really love the work to really, in my estimation, to really work with it very, very fully and very effectively. And I guess what I want to say is a Kabbalistic Tree of Life, and each Sephira on it is an encyclopedia of information, that can be factored into and expand the meaning of each tarot card, and hence the tarot reading or consultation. And in my experience, working with the tarot necessitates both an intellectual and intuitive foundation from which to perceive the cards, and in this way to make the work more full-bodied and therefore more effective. So each Sephira, each of the 10 spheres on the Tree of Life, has a set of attributes: physical objects and correspondences, intellectual concepts with distinctive characteristics which help to flesh out each Sephira. And these include such as colors and gems and scents and plants and flowers and animals and medicines, and they're also paired with spiritual experiences and Kabbalistic intelligences or powers and vices and virtues. For example, the sixth Sephira, the heart of the Tree of Life and human heart, defined by the statement on the pattern on the trestle board: in all things great and small, I perceive the beauty, and one of my mentors used to say, and the humor of the divine expression, is linked with the 4 sixes, plus the 6th major arcana card. We can't forget that, the lovers. It's very much in there. And the Hebrew name of the lovers is Zayin, which means sword. And there are also these attributes that go along with it that get factored into the pip cards. The number 6, the color yellow, the jewel, which is topaz, and the yellow diamond, the frankincense, the acacia tree, the oak tree, the gorse tree, the sunflower, the phoenix, the lion, the spider, and the drug of alcohol, which I think is so appropriate, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
or the medicine. I mean, really, alcohol is a medicine, you know, of course, in taken as a sacrament.
So
Which
these are
it
all
certainly was.
paradisiacal things associated with the Sephira of Tiferet.
Yes. And this is what I'm talking, and I'm saying these are the things that get factored in when one learns the Sephira. One then takes that information and integrates it into the minor cards. I mean, I teach the minor cards for 35 weeks when I teach the minor cards, because they've already had the Tree of Life, and now they're ready to take, you know, one and integrate it into the next. You know, there's also, what else can I say? There's also the spiritual experience, the vision of harmony of all things. You know, and when you look at those sixes, can you see the vision of harmony of all things in those sixes? You can. And it's linked to the sacrament of marriage. Can you see the marriage going on? Maybe not the marriage of man and woman, but oneself with oneself, you know, the Hieros Gamos. And there are also numerous alternative titles. You know, calling a Sephira by another name, you know, really adds so much dimension to it. Or calling those minor arcana cards by, you know, you can call them beauty, but you can also call them things like, well, we're looking at Tiferet, we can call it the comforter, the redeemer, the deliverer, we can call it harmony, we can call it the ruler, we can call it the holy son and daughter. I mean, and there's also a slew of mythological correlations that can bring up all kinds of associations. And I know that there are mythological decks that do that. And I'm talking about, you know, bringing all this information in and, you know, having it in your computer bank, having it in your memory bank. So when you work, you know, when you do a spread and you lay out the cards, having that information there, that intellectual information, and then using your intuition to know what to call up, to know what to bring to the fore, to know what to say, to know what to elicit to bring out of the cards.
That's vital, isn't it? Because what we're talking about is hundreds, if not more than that.
Thousands.
Yeah, for one, and we're just talking about one particular, or maybe four cards here, because, you know. So let's say that let's say that I come to consult with you, and I get this Six of Cups, for example. Now we're talking about Tiferet through the prism of water. You see. And so this is how it's done, those of you who are listening and are paying attention in chat. What you want to do is to marry the card to the actual Sephira and then apply the element. Does that sound about right, Amber?
Mm-hmm. The element, and then there are all these other, there's also the virtue and the vice. So going along with the virtue and the vice of that Six of Cups, we have devotion, which is beautifully, beautifully expressed there. And there's also the vice of pride, which can be also seen there.
So there's a shadow side, even to the better.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I say better in quotation marks because none of them are qualitatively good or bad. Tiferet is useful just like Geburah is useful, even though we would much rather probably embrace Tiferet and avoid the severity of Geburah.
Well, I love Geburah.
You do. Now, for those listening, we're talking specifically about the number 5, the Five of Cups, the Five of Wands.
Yeah, and 5 is really, you know, if we look just even simply to the Hierophant, you know, the Hierophant is the bringer of truth. And Geburah, you know, is the bringer of truth with love as the motivating agent behind it. When the love is gone, you know, it's not Geburah. It's something completely different.
Right.
But true Geburah is motivated by love, is motivated by great compassion. You know, people who are fearful of Geburah, you know, are not fully aware of that aspect of Geburah.
Yes, because its severity can, in fact, be liberating in the long run, can it?
Oh,
it can be very instructive.
Or immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, and it brings down, if you look directly above Geburah, you have the Great Mother, you have understanding that's flowing right in there. You know, so she's coming from a place of understanding. I mean, Geburah comes from a place of great understanding. You know, and it is bringing. You know, the Great Mother has got what can I say? A shadow side that has to be. You know, every mother has to have that. You know, restrictive side to her, and that falls right into Geburah.
Severity,
you know, the ability to not just always be permissive, but to be. Excuse me.
Severity with love.
Or tough love. Yes.
The tough love, yeah, absolutely.
The tough love, baby. The tough love.
We all need it sometimes. Now, we've talked about the Sephirot, and Sephirot is plural of Sephira. This is a Hebrew word we're talking about here.
Yes.
We've talked about the Sephirot and how they correlate to the small numbered cards. And this is pretty much independent of any kind of a deck. You can use this probably with a regular deck of playing cards. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter if you use the Rider-Waite deck, the Thoth deck, it doesn't matter. This is applicable to any deck. But now the Sephirot are connected by pathways, and these correspond to the major arcanum, right? What can you tell us about those pathways? This has been something that sort of confused me.
All right, I'll talk a little bit about the Sephirah, and then I'll talk about the pathways, because we need both. The primary difference between a Sephirah and a path is that each sphere or Sephirah represents a step in the overall or in the general involutionary process, the condensing or thickening of matter from the plane of spirit on the tree of life at the top to the physical plane on the tree's bottom. Conversely, each sphere or Sephirah also represents a step in the general evolutionary process, the decondensing or thinning of matter when proceeding from the tree's bottom on the physical plane to the spiritual plane on the tree's top. I regard the tarot cards originally to be Hebrew letters. So these tarot cards on the tree's pathways running between the connecting spheres to be the personal experiences one has when moving to and from one Sephirah or to and from one particular facet of awareness and another.
Very interesting.
Yes, to be the personal experiences one has while moving to and from one Sephirah or particular facet of awareness and learning to another. That's what the tarot cards signify to me, these pathways. The pathways, I don't mean to be redundant, signify a set of universal and natural laws and principles which assist spiritual progression. The cards are not necessarily assimilated in a particular order. Understanding comes as it does. Yet the assimilation or learning of one Sephirah does, especially in the instance of the paired spheres, lead to the other.
So in that sense, the pathways are transitory in nature, transitioning?
Yes.
My understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
There are also balance points between the Sephirah, much as the three branches of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial government branches, check and balance one another, check and balance out one another. Each path and the wisdom teachings revealed by keying into the tarot card or Hebrew letter thereon has the potential to offset and equalize extreme behavior, thereby maintaining and restoring equilibrium within us and on the tree itself. So essentially, when focused on one of the paired Sephirah, such as mercy and severity, wisdom and understanding, we are bound to become aware of its opposite complement. And neglecting to recognize this brings imbalance and a very wide range of experiences, which, sometimes have brought me kicking and screaming to the other Sephirah.
Would you say then that the major arcana cards, the keys, would they sort of show us a way to restore equilibrium into our lives?
Yes,
if they
especially
show
on the tree. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, definitely. How to restore equilibrium in one's life, and on the tree, it is showing how to balance the the pairs of opposites, or the two Sephirah that it connects. How to bring harmony between mercy and severity. How to work with victory and splendor, or the mind and the emotions. And you have the Tower card that runs that path there, which suggests too much emotion. We have, things fall apart. Too much intellect, things fall apart as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So
So
it check the pathways check and balance, the Sephirah, and again help to restore the balance. Yeah.
Some cards seem to be innately contradictory to the Sephirot. For example, The seven in the earth element, the seven of coins, or the seven of discs, or the seven of pentacles, however you want to call it, it's very earthy. So if we stick it into an intellectual or a mental type of sephira, like Hod, like sephira number 8, or sephira even number 7, yet Netzach. Sometimes,
well,
maybe,
that goes with the sevens. Go with Netzach. Oh, go ahead. Please keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, the earth element, because we should have mentioned this. The tree of life is actually divided into 4 parts pertaining to element, right? Asiya,
Yes.
Right, and so
which go along with the Tetragrammaton.
So they correspond to the 4 letters in the whole.
That's
in the
right.
holy
The
name.
elements each correspond to a letter on the Tetragrammaton. The yods are the wands, and the hay, the second letter is the cups, and the vav is the swords, the air element, and the final hay is the pentacles. And I could give you a little bit more about that. Yes, no, maybe.
This is very heady stuff. It's all very, very, very.
The 4 Kabbalistic worlds, which are really, we're working with these 4 worlds all the time. So you were saying if something seems to fall into a contradictory, place, or a contradictory. Say that again. Say what you were saying again, please, Stephen.
Well, it seems to me, for example, that some.
Yeah.
And some elements, for example, the earth element, earth cards, pentacles, for example, it might not fit so well in that part of the tree of life that's designated for air. The airy part of the tree of life. Do you see what I'm driving at?
Well, or it may suggest that one needs to lighten up.
Too serious. Too serious. Preponderance of certain numbers or certain elements. I mean, all the signs of the zodiac. I look at, if there is a preponderance of numbers or elements, I look at the quality that they are pointing at developing, the quality or qualities that they're pointing at developing, rather than, any kind of a prediction seasonally or planetarily or anything like that. That's my tendency. I know that sometimes people like to see, sevens, maybe 7 weeks, 7 months, whatever. But I think, that we must look at, the underlying principles, of the cards that are there. What is that? What is that? What are the principles that are coming to the fore there? What are they trying to point out? Why do I have so many sevens? Yeah.
Am I learning about my emotionality, and perhaps how to take my emotions and channel them and bring them into some kind of a physical a form. If there's a lot of earth there, some type of a physical manifestation. Take my creativity and bring it, channel it into a physical form.
Oh my, that's just really fascinating, and it never fails to amaze me how pertinent the tarot is for anybody's specific situation, and a lot of it is thanks to this tree of life and these Kabbalistic principles that underlie the tarot. And in fact, the Kabbalah, for a lot of occultists, they believe that the Kabbalah is the source of the tarot.
Yeah. They do. That they were originally the tree of life. It was the Sephirah, and then there were Hebrew letters on the paths, which legend says, and that people meditated on the Hebrew letters, and out of the Hebrew letters came these images. And it makes perfect sense, because the ancient Hebrew Kabbalists would take a Hebrew letter and they would repeatedly write that letter out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and by writing out that letter and repeating the letter, the meaning of the letter would become revealed to them. So it's only one step away for me, that an image would also come from that letter.
Interesting. Now, Amber, you've been doing this for quite some time, haven't you? How long have you been studying the tarot and dealing with the tarot and Kabbalah?
Well, it's been a while that it's been working with me. I think it picked me. I did over 40 years.
So you definitely know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm in the process of, thank you. And I'm certainly in process, Stephen. I'm certainly in process. There's so much to learn. And the most important aspect of it is not just learning it, it's living it. You know?
Well, how has this affected how has it influenced your life?
Well, Buddhism speaks of Nihayana, spiritual practice when it's about my own well-being and enlightenment, and Mahayana when its spiritual practice is about the well-being and enlightenment of all. And, for years, my Kabbalistic studies and path and practice were all about me and mine. Yeah. And over time, it started to shift. And, the Hebrew Kabbalists speak of Tikkun Olam, the repair and the healing of the world, and the Dalai Lama and the Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel, among others, teach, in the face of suffering, one has no right to turn away and not to see. So, for me, being spiritual has become synonymous with having a social and political conscience. Yet like the Sphinx, on the Wheel of Fortune card, to act wholeheartedly, yet without undue attachment to what results. And this includes relinquishing my aversion to canvassing a neighborhood in a voting district different from mine to help remove a corrupt politician from office, or getting on a bus or a plane when it has the potential to relieve suffering and help build a critical mass for a better world. So, it's been very instrumental in renewing my willingness and my desire to do whatever I can to input the critical mass and make the world a better place for everybody. And I
that's
think
lovely.
In time, I think it does that. It's just an evolutionary process.
Well, Amber, I wish we had another hour to talk about these things. Unfortunately, our time has run out too soon.
Time is out. We've had so much fun.
Oh, Amber, I have enjoyed this interview. I cannot thank you enough for joining us tonight. I'd like to remind everybody at home that Amber Jayanti is the proprietress of the Santa Cruz School for Tarot and Kabbalah Study, founded in 1975. Been around for a while. She's the author of Tarot for Dummies, along with other illuminating works. She has a wonderful course on the tarot that I highly recommend, and every one of you should go visit her at www.practical-mystic.com. She also does tarot consultations too, be in person or via distance through Skype. So by all means, visit her website and check Amber Jayanti out. Ms. Jayanti, thank you again so much for coming and being with us tonight.
Thank you. My pleasure. Truly my pleasure, Stephen. Thank you so much for inviting me, and everybody else in the studio. Thank you, and all of you out there who might be listening. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh,
Hello.
Lovely.
Peace.
Have a lovely night. We'll talk later, Amber. Bye.
Thank you, darling. Hello.
All right. That was a lovely interview with the great Amber Jayanti. We thank her for that.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.